Good evening and welcome to Fridays by the Fire, a brand new podcast created by me, your favorite Sandy Best Life Jones. I'm so happy you could be here tonight because tonight's show is really special to me. And I am excited to introduce my guests to you. They have a love story like no other. And when you hear the story, you're not going to believe the story. telling you, you are not gonna believe this story. It's an amazing story. It's one of my favorite love stories, I have to say. And I'm so blessed and so thankful that I was able to be with them when they committed themselves to each other in covenant marriage. It was an absolutely beautiful wedding. When I tell you that thing was curated to the nines, it was curated to the nines. I am not joking. And we're going to hear all about that when we bring them out. They are in the green room. I'm going to bring them out in just a minute. But before I do, I have to ask you, please share the live. If you're watching on Facebook, share the live. If you're watching on YouTube, like the video, share the video, and subscribe to my channel. It is a free way to support Best Life TV on YouTube. So thank you. Do that for me really quick. Go ahead and share the live for me. Make sure we have as many people as possible in the chat. Yes, I want to see some people in the chat. I'm not bringing them out till I see some people in the chat. Nope. All right, go ahead and share the live for me, everybody. I'm so excited to bring them out. I've known Nelann since she was in middle school, but I had the pleasure of meeting Michael at their wedding, and they're just such a beautiful couple, and they're coming together. There was nothing traditional about it at all, first of all. So it's not like anything that I've ever experienced before, but it was an absolutely beautiful union of two people that were ready to commit to each other. So without further ado, oh, you know what? I am going to wait. I'm going to wait just a couple more minutes before I bring them out. Oh, I see some people in the chat now. All right. Absolutely. I'm excited. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Let me click on here. Da, 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 da. There we go. There we go. All right. If everybody's ready, I'm going to bring the Batemans out because they are here and they are waiting. There they are. Michael and Nelann.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, newlyweds. Now, listen, I got a brand new microphone. Can you hear me?
We
Yes,
can.
we
Can you
hear
hear
Okay,
us?
good. Yes, I can hear you. I'm so blessed. People donate to my channel. I mean, who would ever think? That's not something that people have to do, but they do. And so I was able to buy a new microphone. So I'm really excited about my microphone. But I'm even more excited to see the two of you. How are you? It's great to see you.
Good. How about yourself?
I am good.
I
I
see
am
some folks
good.
in the chat on the YouTube, so that's
Yes.
exciting. Mhm.
So Nelann, about a week ago or so, we had an interview. We did a pre-recorded interview.
Mhm.
And wouldn't you know, we lost connection to the internet. And
Mhm.
so I decided, because let me just say this, typically Fridays by the Fire is like a bite-sized version of Girl Talk Sunday. And so
Mhm.
normally it's a 20-minute conversation on whatever topic my guests want to address, or whatever topic God gives me. He's given me a whole list of topics that I want to talk about. And so when we were doing the live, or when we were doing the pre-recorded show, we lost connection to the internet. So I said, you know what? I'm not just going to bring Nelann back. We
Mhm.
going to bring Mr. Bateman too. And we're going to do a whole hour because I think they
Mhm.
deserve it. So that's why both of you are back, and we're gonna let this story tell itself after y'all tell it too.
Okay.
So I'm
Sounds
excited. And yes, I see, oh yes, people in the chat. I love it. Okay, let's go. All right, Nelann, I want to start with you. And I just want people to know that yes, I'm singing Nelann right now, but I've been calling Nelann chocolate since she was in middle school. So you're probably going to hear me call her chocolate. So
right.
don't get confused. I am
Mhm.
talking about Nelann.
Most don't know that, huh? Well, Michael knew that after
Mhm.
talking to my
Mhm.
dad,
Mhm.
obviously.
So Nelann, I want to start with you. I have, some questions that I want to ask, and then we're just going to let you go and tell the whole story, both of you. My
Mhm.
question for you, Nelann, is have you, or did you always know you wanted to be married? Like even in your 20s, did you know?
So I wouldn't say I always knew, but I mean, I
Mhm.
think everybody's desire is to eventually be married. I just felt in my 20s, clearly it wasn't happening. So it didn't happen
Right.
until obviously well into my 40s, but it's here now, right? So I think
Mhm.
I had the desire, like anybody else, like any, young person or whomever, you desire to be with a mate, right? You desire to be married, but until God's timing, you just patiently wait. So that's what I was doing. Hmm.
And so while you waited though, we talked about this in our other conversation. You said that
Hmm.
you lived your life to the fullest, even while you were single. You know, you wanted to be coupled, but you weren't, but you didn't let that stop you from living life, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was definitely the game plan. I mean, I at one point I think I probably wrestled with God somewhere along the line to say why can't this happen or why hasn't it happened just yet or where
Mhm.
is he? But eventually I think after plenty of tears and plenty of prayer time, eventually my life just became it's just going to be me and Jesus, and that's what it
Mhm.
is. And I think
Mhm.
literally once we begin to share maybe a little bit about what the
Mhm.
story is, it was
Mhm.
literally God having to knock me over the head and be like, "Girl, this this is what I had for you," because my mind was so focused on if it hasn't happened yet, then maybe it's just not going to happen. But I'm going to enjoy what it means to be single, but I'm also going to do what God is having me to do, right?
Mhm.
And that's not being upset or angry anymore. That's just
Yeah.
living my life, to the best and to the fullest that I could.
Yeah. And you've had such an adventurous life. I watched you grow up from middle school all the way through college. You spent your senior year of college out of the country.
Mhm.
And that's kind of how you and Michael made your first connection. You want to tell us about
Mhm.
that?
That is true. We were both students studying abroad. I was going to school in Atlanta at the time, and he's from New Jersey. And we had probably, I don't know, 12, 15 people who studied abroad that
Mhm.
semester. I don't know,
In the group.
right? In that entire study abroad group. And we just ended up meeting. And it wasn't, I don't know, like it wasn't a love connection some 20 plus years ago. So this is all the way in literally 2000, right? So
2000.
this is
Yep.
99, 2000, because I remember being over there and it was the whole Y2K thing. Well, you stayed just for a semester,
Yeah.
right? You stayed for 99,
Mhm.
but I came in, well, the whole academic school year.
Mhm.
But I do remember we had not a couple of Dominican classes together, but we
We had
had
one
did we? What class?
Dominican
We
history.
history, yeah. So we had a history class together, and we
Mhm.
had we ended up dancing together
Mhm.
because we had this professor who was really big on Afro Dominican culture and
Mhm.
just kind of taking us to sightsee and see everything about the island and just learn more about the culture. And so we ended up dancing there together. I don't know.
Yeah. So
Right.
this was in 2000.
This is in
You're
2000.
both studying abroad. Where were you? In the Dominican, you said?
Mhm.
Correct. Dominican Republic. Yep.
Okay. So
Hmm.
when you first met each other, there was no love connection. You were just a group of students
That's it.
that were over there studying,
Yep.
studying the culture, studying the language.
That's
You
it.
met in this big group of people. You had
Yep.
a dance, but it was no big deal. You know, it's just,
Mm-mm.
just people that like each other that, we're all friends. It's
Right.
a big group of friends.
That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
You can
All
tell you more
right.
about that because I know it wasn't a love connection because he had eyes for somebody else. I didn't even know.
I was about to say, Michael, what's your interpretation of that
Hmm.
first meeting in 2000?
I think it was just because at the time I was calling and talking back and forth with someone else at the time, so
Mhm.
I wasn't even necessarily thinking of anything. I wasn't looking at any Dominican ladies. I wasn't looking at anybody. But I think it kind of underscores the importance of making connections and friendships, because
Yeah.
I think what I noticed about Nelann then
Mhm.
was her character. Like I noticed her integrity,
Mhm.
how like she was deep in Spanish. Like she was like focused
Yeah.
on like I'm gonna speak Spanish all the time. I think both of us were Spanish majors, and so she was so focused on I'm gonna make the most of this time. That again, like she wasn't thinking about nobody else.
Hmm.
Really in that sense. And I think the other piece that was a connection. I don't know if she remembered it, but there was also again the commitment to the Lord. And so on that trip, there was one time I think that both of us like I went with her to like a Dominican church,
Mhm.
just because you get in the routine of going to church every Sunday, that kind of thing. And so trying to find like-minded people. Like once I figured out that she was a believer, I was like, well, I want to go to this church, but of course, like you're in a foreign country, you don't go anywhere by yourself.
Right.
And so I think we ended up like going to one of the like a Dominican Pentecostal church or so, or Baptist church as well. So, but again, I think it just underscores the importance of just like friendships, like I mean, making connections with people as brothers and sisters in Christ, and then like really getting a chance to see their character, because there's not that extra layer that is kind of covering over some of that other stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Nelann, at this time, did you have like the proverbial list of all the attributes you wanted in a possible partner? Did you have your list?
I did not.
You
I
did
did
not.
not, especially not at that time. No, because if you remember, because actually you were my youth leader, right, at
Yep.
church back home. So you know that I was googly eyed over, this. Sorry, man.
We know.
Okay, so puppy love, but I was Google Gaga over one of the guys that we grew up with, and so
Yeah.
even while I was studying abroad, my mind was still okay. Well, we're not together. We never dated anyway,
Right.
But my mind was just like, oh, I love him. That's gonna be who I'm with, So I didn't have a list, because clearly in my head I was just like, that was where my mind was. Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm I honestly didn't develop a list. I think I heard that maybe in my 30s. But I don't think I even developed anything until probably 40, I think. Yeah.
So you meet in 2000 in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
Both of you are studying Spanish. You're part of
Mhm.
a big group of students that are over there studying. And then when it was time for Michael to leave to go back to New Jersey, Nelann, you stayed there for the full school year, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Now, did the two of you keep in touch after that?
Not at
No.
all.
No,
Nope.
not at all.
Not at
Not
all.
at all.
We just went
Not
our
even
separate
on the
ways. That was a wrap.
right.
I
So
don't even
then,
think Facebook existed yet. Facebook wasn't even a thing.
no,
Yet.
it wasn't.
No.
Yeah.
So then, when did you and how did you reconnect?
Well, I'll start it then.
Yes.
Okay. So 20 years later, pretty much.
20 years later.
20 years later, right?
Okay.
But there is when we studied abroad, there
Mhm.
was one of the girls who also studied abroad was a little older than we were. So all of us pretty much lived with host families or families who sponsored and had an opportunity for us to just stay there. Either they had younger children or older children, right? And so, but the girl who is also from California originally, she was a little older than we were, probably about 6 or 7 years older. But she didn't have a host family. She stayed on her own and had like her own apartment. So I was just like, oh, she's grown. So, but we would always have like get-togethers throughout the whole country while we were studying abroad. But
Right.
this 20 years later, she puts an image out of all of us, like this huge group photo of everybody. And it's like, where's everybody at? Like, I found this treasure, look at what I found some 20 years ago, and starts chiming in. And then she was just like, where is everybody? And I'm really not on Facebook. I'm on it definitely more than he is, but I mean, we're barely there. Like, I go on it sometimes to like kind of like check in or just see how everybody was doing. But I guess she was pretty much doing the same thing. But it just happened to be when she put that message out and had tagged some people, I saw the message or saw the tag. And then I chime in and I'm just like, oh, hey, how's everybody doing? I'm in Louisiana now. And then I see that he chimes in and just like, I'm in Colorado. And some other people are just like, I'm in Maine and whatever. And so after that, I end up getting a direct message. So somebody in my DMs, right?
What?
20 years later. And
20 years later. So from 2000 to 2020, you both living your lives on separate parts of the country, haven't talked to each other, haven't seen each other. And then one of your classmates makes a post like a 20-year reunion type of tea. And you see the post and everybody's checking in. I'm over here. I live over here. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And you see Michael and he sees you and all the other people. And then you get an instant message. What'd he say?
I don't even remember what you said.
It
was like, hello. How you doing? Or something. Yeah. I don't even remember. And I tried to go back and find my message. I thought stuff on social media did not delete, right? But it does. Yeah. because I couldn't go back and find that. Like I can scroll back and still see certain things from a long time ago, but I guess it was like 20 years. Let it go.
Yeah.
So,
I was gonna say, and I think that at that time, just talking about, I think the stage that she was at in life, it took me a while to get a phone number. I'm just saying. So
I did not know you. This is 20 years ago, sir.
So I mean, from the DM, hey, how are you doing? That kind of thing. It was months, maybe a year.
Yeah.
It might have been a year
before she gave you her number?
Exactly, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it was literally her and Jesus. And
Wow.
And I think it got to the point where, because I think for her birthday, I just wanted to send her a card.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was
I
like,
think I don't know. Like I probably had my guard. I did. I had my guard up a little bit. You know.
You did.
A lot. But
Yeah.
I do remember that. I do remember this was 2020, and my birthday is in April. Both of our birthdays are in April. We're just days apart. And so I remember him saying he wanted my phone number, or he wanted the address
to be able to send you a card.
And I think eventually I exchanged my phone number. We exchanged phone numbers because our conversation shifted from connecting just via social media, via messenger, to phone calls. And I think we had regular phone calls for a while. Like it would be every week. Like we decided we were going to have, I think probably on Sunday. It's like our accountability type day, because he was also in education at that time, so I found out this conversation. But talking about the birthdays, for April, he wanted to send me a card, but I think this is still pandemic stuff too. So I was still kind of skeptical about some of everything, And so I was just like, I ain't giving my address, and I gave him my email address, right? I think.
Yeah. Give me your email address.
It's address. So I gave him my email address.
You know what, Nelann, I remember when we talked about this before, you said when he asked for your address, you were like, sir, I don't know you.
Sir.
I have not seen you in 20 years. I'm not giving you my address.
Okay, right. This one still includes address in it, email address. So
there you go.
Halfway.
Yeah. I did, and so it just forced me to be creative.
And he was.
And so I wrote like a big card, and then I recorded it. I think, and I recorded the message, me reading it. It had a poem in it, and then I sent the recording, like a YouTube link or something like that, to the recording of me reading the card to her email address.
And I still have it.
Wow.
Yeah. So he shared
Now, Michael, you have been married before, and you have 2 children from your first marriage.
Yes.
So we already know Nelann was gun shy. We know, because everything was going over her head. Like Were you a little bit gun shy too, or by that time were you ready to meet someone?
It's really funny because I think it was after the divorce. Maybe it might have been just a year, and I have older children. They're now 21 and 18. But even at that time, middle school, like high school, they, after a year, they asked me, like, Dad, like, are you interested, like, in ever getting married again? Like, before I even started kind of thinking about it. And I think, again, to Nelann's point, I think I really was focused on like my relationship with the Lord and getting healing, because I think that sometimes I think people underestimate with divorce that it is the death of something. It's the death of like
it is
a relationship, is the death of a vision, or like like purpose, that kind of thing. And so like working through that, I don't think that I was in that space necessarily, but I think by the time that we started communicating, it was that, again, that possibility, like the possibility.
Okay. So for you, did you feel like you needed to wait until you were completely healed, or were you to a point where you were healed in so much that you felt like, okay, if I make a connection with someone, it'll be okay?
I think it's like layers of healing. And so I think at that point, when I started to talk with her, I talked to some of my mentors in some of the healing that I was doing, to say like, hey, like I'm interested, or I'm potentially interested in this person. Kind of, what do you think? I probably got there much quicker than she did, in the sense of that level of interest or seeing the possibility. But yeah, I think like after a few layers of healing, I felt that I was ready. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Chocolate, now you get this birthday card that he done created and turned into a whole video. He done
Mhm.
put the poem on the video with the birthday card. And what were you thinking when you got that email? What were you thinking?
Nathan. And I was like, that's
Uh-huh.
nice. It's awesome. Thank you so much.
Lord. So you had no
No idea.
clue.
None. Yeah, none. And I even had, the funny thing is, so obviously this is still COVID time, right? 2020 is
Right.
still like pandemic. And so I think by this time we were still social distanced,
Mhm.
but I had some, like in the apartment complex where I lived at that time, I had some girlfriends and we would always go like walking out together. And so
Mhm.
we could, I think they said it was okay at that time to go outside, but just to make sure that you were still spread out. So I
Right.
remember we had a park or like something that was near the levee, and we all
Mhm.
took our little lawn chairs and went to go sit out there. And I remember sharing with them that I got a birthday card because they were doing something for me for my birthday as well. I remember
Right.
sharing with them that I got a birthday card, and I shared with them share with them the link. That's what you do with your girl. So you share with them the link, and they get to see
Yeah.
them. Like, wow, like he wrote you a card, and he like recorded himself and sent it out. She's like, girl. And then they didn't even call him by name. They didn't call him Michael. They were calling him Colorado. So I told them that they were just like, oh, if Colorado sent you something. So every time we would talk, he didn't have a name. His name became Colorado. So yeah, I do remember that. Sharing that with the girls.
So
But still, I think they even, all my friends were like light years ahead of me. And
yeah.
granted, I've always been like the youngest in the crew. Like I've
Mhm.
always migrated toward being around older people. But I don't know, like I don't understand subliminal messages. I really never have. I really just need you to just be direct with me and tell me what it
Mm.
is. So for me to have to read between the lines or to figure out what's going on
Clearly.
or the message,
Mm,
done.
mm, mm.
Done.
So you get the card, and then what happens?
Nothing again. So that's a wrap. So first was the DMs. Nathan, oh, so great to hear from you. Awesome. And then I get the birthday card. Here's my email address. And then we did eventually begin to exchange phone numbers.
Mhm.
So still nothing. I think what I enjoyed the most in the beginning, because
Mhm.
it wasn't anything. It wasn't a courtship. It was literally just a blooming friendship of
Mhm.
understanding. I
Mhm.
have somebody else now that I can talk to who is the opposite sex, who
Mhm.
is in a different state, but
Mhm.
who is also sharing the same things that I enjoy, right? Knowing
Mhm.
that we both, of course, love the Lord, but that he was also in education at that time. And I think you were a classroom teacher still
Mhm.
at that time and moving
Mhm.
into administration, right? And I was still a classroom teacher, but I was also trying to figure out how to pivot, like in the
Mhm.
educational world. So
Right.
having conversation to back off of and just having somebody kind of not necessarily challenge me, but also kind of push me forward also, to say,
Yeah.
you can try these things out, or why don't you, try to have these things? Because I think I was moving into a more leadership role of being like a mentor teacher or really trying to coach colleagues and do different things. So
Mhm.
he had already done that. So I had somebody else to piggyback ideas off of. So I really admired that. I just really admired our conversation and the budding friendship that was growing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting that you make the distinction, that it wasn't courting.
Mm-mm.
You were just building
Yeah.
a friendship. It was casual. You
Mhm.
like talking to each other. You
Right.
shared a lot in common. You had, common interests. You were in the
Mhm.
same field of work.
That's it.
Your
Yeah.
birthdays are just days
Mhm.
apart. And so you
Right.
just took your time and decided,
Mhm.
we're just gonna be friends. And then
Yeah.
so it took like, didn't you say like 2 more years
Ma'am,
of friendship?
seriously, it really did. It
Yeah.
really did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even so, 2020 is when we reconnected, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And then so from 2000 to 2020, and then finally in
226.
2021, you came to Louisiana,
Okay,
right?
221. The
This is
first
for the
time.
conference.
No,
So
you gotta tell us about the conference because
yeah,
you done conjured up a whole conference in your
I
mind,
had.
girl. Tell the story.
Listen,
Tell us.
I didn't give you a whole scenario.
Yes.
So 2021 rolls around. This is summertime, right? So
Mhm.
this is June. This is June 2021. And in my mind, he coming to Louisiana because clearly it's a conference that's happening in Louisiana.
Yes.
The man ain't told me nothing about a conference. Okay. But in my head, this is summertime. So what do I do for summer? I go to conferences. I present at conferences. I connect with other people. This is networking time. So I'm thinking, oh, he's going to come to Louisiana. That's great. So he even asked me before, like, what are you doing on such and such weekend? And I'm just like, man, I wonder what conference, what conference is going on right now? Like around this time, none, right? But he comes, and it was just for the weekend, right? He came in for the weekend, and it was hilarious because I literally still did not make any connections. I picked him up from the airport. I took him to the hotel where he was staying. I picked him up. I think I took you by the school, where I was working at the time. Like we drove past it. We went to a museum, an African American history museum. What else we do? We went to the city. We did a lot of stuff. He even met like one of my cousins, my brother's cousin. We went to go hang out and went to like a restaurant that we always go to. He was meeting family. He came to church with me the following Sunday before I took him back to the airport. We did a lot.
Yeah, we did.
I never remember mentioning the conference.
Again, the funny thing is that I spent most of the time with her. And so I think except for I went to the French Quarter, I think she dropped me off or whatever, and I went and just walked around the French Quarter, and she was doing something else.
That was like the only time you were solo.
I never went to no hotel. I never went to no conference at all. Didn't even say, hey, this is what I learned from the conference. There was none of that.
Wait,
where's your lanyard?
Oh, Michael, when did you know that she thought you were coming from a conference? Did she tell you?
This was not until after, maybe
way after,
maybe like a year after or something like that, where she started talking. I think once we started talking about like getting into like the courting or like that kind of thing, she revealed that she had thought that it was a conference the whole time.
So Michael, you say to her, I want to come and see you.
Yes.
Did you realize that she didn't realize that you liked her?
So I think the thing between like 2020, 2021, and even into 2023,
like that 2-year gap.
I distinctly remember 3 times that I attempted to say to her directly, hey, do you want like something more than friendship?
Right.
And then her response of, no, I'm good. So like 3 times. Yes, it's almost like Peter with denial.
No, huh?
Yes.
Nothing.
So I think, no, I did not turn any other cheek. I think I pulled out a sword. Peter fashion. But so I think like it really pushed me. I think to really pursue the friendship and also to be patient too, because I think what I'd learned from just relationship in a general sense is that you can't like force somebody to be ready. Right. But then I think the other piece of it is the importance of really being clear about your intentions as well.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want her to not know what my intentions were, or at least to not know that I was interested. So I think that kind of came along somewhere between those years as well.
There was a part where I felt like he was kind of clear in the 2021 visit, because I remember I'd asked him, I don't even know how we got on the topic, but I asked him if he had ever seen the movie Brown Sugar. And then I was just like, I'm gonna revoke your black card because he told me no, he had not seen it. I was just like, now you here and you're going back to this hotel room, so that's your homework. Like, go watch Brown Sugar, you know? So he goes back to the hotel room. He told me he watched it for a little bit, but not much of it. I don't know how much you watched of it.
I made it through maybe the first 10 minutes, and I was like, no.
Yeah.
I can't deal with all the extra stuff.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite movies. But go ahead.
Sorry. You can take my black card too.
So he goes and watches it, and then he comes. I think it's the next day, maybe. It's the next day, but maybe even that night. I don't know. It's either the next day or the night. He texts me and he sent me a poem. So he watched the movie and then he sent me a poem. And then I remember at the end of it, I was just like, and it doesn't like it. Okay, so I read it. The poem was like at the bottom of it. I just remember him saying like, you could be my brown sugar, or you could be whatever. No, she's like,
Okay.
that's nice. And even now, I have now one of my best friends. She's a poet, and
Mhm.
so she writes all the time. So I do remember sharing this with her. And when
Yeah.
I shared this with her, she was like, "Okay, push through, Paul." And all of my friends, like I have two best friends in Louisiana,
Mhm.
and then I have
Mhm.
my best friend who's also in Atlanta. And so the one who is a poet, she was just like, "Girl, do you not see like all this stuff?" I said, she was just like, "Push through, Colorado." So again, she was calling from Colorado. Then I told one of my other girlfriends, and she was just like, okay, Michael. Yikes. And
So
I'm sitting
so
here like, that's really nice. Brown sugar. I'm gonna need him to
chocolate.
watch the whole movie.
I asked you this in our in our other conversation, but I'm going to ask you again now.
Mm-hmm.
Was there part of you saying he could not possibly like me like that? Do you feel like part of you was saying that?
I think so. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think a part of me was already, and again, because so much time has lapsed, and not
Mhm.
just the 20-year gap between us that we had spent from being college students to now being adults,
Mhm.
but seasoned adults. Like I'm not in my 20s anymore talking
Right.
about, brown sugar. I'm 40 plus. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Right.
I think somewhere in the back of my head too, it was almost
Mhm.
just like it hasn't happened, so it's not going to happen. And so
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
else is going on, it was literally a wall. So I received it and I really did. I took it to heart. I thought it was beautiful because I believe Michael is really a wordsmith. He's very artistic. He's very
Mhm.
thoughtful. He shares a lot. He writes about it and he expresses that very well. So
Mhm.
I would get letters in the mail. I love those things. And
Mhm.
um, and he doesn't hold back on about doing it. But I think just
Mhm.
at that time, my mind was just it was literally a block, because not trying to be hardcore or like super spiritual to be like it was just me and Jesus, but it
Right.
really was, like my mind was already set because listen, I'm not trying to get my feelings hurt anymore. I'm already older, I
Mhm.
don't feel like
Mhm.
all that, and I don't feel
Yeah.
like really waiting. So unless
Yeah.
you literally tell me this is it, then
Mhm.
I'm not getting ready to
Mhm.
waste time. So
I'm glad you said that. So, Michael, did it make you even more intrigued to see that she wasn't desperate? She wasn't, you know, all up in your space, she was kind of like following your lead. She had a full life when you met her. She was confident, self-assured, beautiful, smart, creative, and she wasn't falling all over you. Did that intrigue you more?
I think what it forced me to do, and I think that what,
Mhm,
what I had learned from like in my own like healing journey, like the
mhm,
layers,
mhm.
is that it forced me to not go into a place where it became all about me.
Right.
And
Okay.
so it forced it kind of like tested my like maturity in the sense
Mhm,
of when I got rejection, like
mhm.
what does that feel like and what am I going to do about it? So am I just going
Right.
to like stop being friends with her just because she doesn't want to like move forward with anything else beyond that? And
Mhm.
so I think it kind of pushed me in that sense. But at the other point too, and it's something that I say to like my son all the time,
Yeah.
is that that you found the person that God has for you
Yeah.
when you're running your race, you're pursuing your purpose,
Mhm.
and you just look to your side and you notice that they're running in the same direction.
Mm. Mhm.
And so, like, even though she was saying, like, I'm not really interested in that right now,
Yeah.
I noticed that she was running in the same direction.
Yeah.
And so the thing is that kind of to her point, as far as the me and Jesus thing,
Mhm.
it really is like my life is about running after the Lord.
Mhm.
And so I'm gonna continue running after the Lord, whether or not you want to pursue nothing. And so if you're still running in the same direction that I am,
Mhm.
we're still running together, almost like as brother and sister in Christ.
Mhm.
And so I think that kind of again, I think what it did is it also gave me the opportunity to see her character as well. So so
Mhm.
so I think there is something attractive about
Mhm.
a person who's honest and knows what they want
Yeah.
and knows what they're ready for, and doesn't kind of like I think it would have been unattractive
Mhm.
if it's like, well, sure, like we could, but like I don't really know, like that kind of wishy-washiness,
Right.
that inauthenticity,
Yeah.
um, that kind of is something that eventually like kind of it shows through. So I mean, I knew that her integrity and her character was involved in her being clear with me and
Mhm.
not being afraid to tell me the truth, but still
Yeah.
doing it in a kind way.
Mhm.
Told me about her character. So I guess in that way, it did kind of attract me more.
So, other words, Chalk, you were resolute in your nonchalance.
Yes, I'm good. Literally,
I am.
I'm good.
So, from the 2021 visit, he comes all the way to Louisiana to see you, not to go to a teacher's conference.
Not-
Not at all.
You spend time together. You're in the same space together, but then it's like another 2 years
It
of
is.
building friendship
Mhm.
before your first date.
Yeah.
Now, who wants to tell me about the first date?
So I'll probably start, but,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
I like for her to finish because she fills in the blanks better than I do.
Okay.
And so I think I think prompting, maybe like prompted by the Holy Spirit, or just like, again, instead of saying, for example, would you like to pursue like a relationship beyond friendship?
Right.
Just the idea is that what do you do? Like if you're interested in somebody, you ask them on a date. And I mean, just because we're in two different states, that doesn't make any difference. And so on one of our phone conversations, I just said, hey, like, do you want to go on a date? And she's like, okay, like how's that gonna work? And I think she it might have been like a joking thing, like let me check my schedule, let me see like what I have going on. And then I think and then
This
she
is
said,
like a text message.
yes, it was.
He's asked before, I think, like verbally,
Right.
and I think I said no.
Mhm.
But this time was like in a text message.
Yeah.
And it, because of our time difference at the time, Louisiana was 2 hours ahead.
And so it was in the morning.
Right.
I'm a morning person.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say it had to be like 3 or 4 o'clock his time, which means it's like 5 or 6 o'clock my time. So me being flipped and kind of like I ain't got nothing to do. You know what I'm saying? So he's just like, you want to go on a date? And I was just like, we've been on a date, So when he came in 2021, what is a date? A date is when people spend quality time together. It's just the two of them. They go out to dinner. They go eat. We did that. Like we went to go sightsee. We met family. People meet family sometimes on a date. I was just like, we did that. And then he was just like, I think he says like, no, like I wanna show you my intention or something like that. And me, still being flip. I was just like, let me check my calendar. I ain't doing nothing. You know what I'm saying? Especially because it's the crack of dawn. So, but eventually I said yes.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so,
Michael got on a plane
I got on the plane. I
and
did.
flew 3,000 miles for the first date. Official date.
Yep.
When you told me that, Chocolate, I said,
yeah,
if a bow and arrow engulfed in flames was a person, it would be Michael. This man was not playing.
He was not.
He got on that plane.
Yeah.
After taking his time and the two of you taking your time to really build a solid foundation of friendship up under you.
Right.
You're talking on the phone, you're sharing, you like each other's company, even though it's long distance. He decides, you know what? It's been 2 years since I've seen her face to face in person. I'm gonna fly down there and we're gonna have an official date.
Yeah. That's
February.
February
2023.
Yeah. Yep. That's date number 1.
Yes.
Wow.
So I have date number 1.
Yeah. I have to ask. I have to ask, Chocolate, by then, did you know?
No. Still no.
OMG.
But I was getting warmer though.
You were getting warm?
I was getting warmer, right? Kind of.
Yes. There was a couple of degrees in temperature that rose.
There were, because he pulled out like all the stops for day number 1. He literally came in for like 1 day, and that was a wrap. And so I remember the
came in for 1 day.
That's it. It was just 1 day.
I think it was 2 because I think I stayed for Sunday.
No, you didn't.
I didn't stay.
No.
Oh,
it was like we had
Saturday.
We had like an all-day date on Saturday.
And I left on Sunday.
Right. So when he came, when he texted, I don't know. I can't remember if I must have asked like, okay, well, what time am I coming to get you? Right? Like, because you're not from here. You flying in. So I was just like, well, what time am I coming to get you? So he was just like,
No
slap
time.
yourself. Like, what are you
It's a
doing?
date.
Right.
I'm picking you up in a
Exactly.
car.
Right. So that is again, right? Get it together.
Uh,
So this is the text message. This is what he says. What are you talking about? Send me your address. Duh. Like I'm coming to pick you up. Like I'm coming to get you. And so then he was just like, well, I'll be there for about 9:30 that morning.
Mhm.
So he came Saturday morning. It was
mhm.
about 9:30 or so. He gets to the house. And I remember now, flash back to 2021 now, right? When he
Right.
came in 2021, I would remember telling him, take pictures of everything. Take
Right.
pictures of the food, take pictures
Mhm.
of, the street names, like all these things, because Louisiana has a lot of culture.
Right.
And so
Right.
when you go or just in visiting anywhere, it's always important to go back and be able to have some memories to look at. And so I remember telling him that. And so when he comes now in 2023, he has this little Polaroid, not the old school fashion Polaroid
Polaroid camera.
cameras,
Right.
right? The one
Right.
that take the picture, the image comes out
With the
Mhm.
mini, with the mini
yeah,
Mhm.
picture.
the Polaroid mini pictures. And so when he comes to pick me up that morning, we take a picture at the condo where I used to live, right in front
Mhm.
of the door. And that's like one picture, like cheese, getting ready for the day to go out. And we take pictures of when we start driving. He ended up meeting my mom. That was not the plan, right?
Oh,
I was just
mama.
ready to go. But anyway, that was the whole story. So, and she didn't want to keep him there, so she gave him a big hug and was
Mhm.
just smiling and looking at both of us. Just like, I'm not gonna keep you, And she was not gonna
Yeah.
keep you. And so, I think you had even helped her get out the car, huh? Helped her get out the
Mhm.
car, comes
Mhm.
to the house.
Come back from work.
Yeah. So anyway, we end up leaving, and
Mhm.
it was like I said, it was a whole day date. So we left the house, we drove to the city, and we ended up.
Museum.
The museum was first,
Mhm.
so we had
Mhm.
breakfast at the museum. He had a king cake or a piece of the king cake. In culture for New Orleans cultures, if you get the baby, like it's a little plastic baby inside, that just means
Mhm.
you gotta buy the king cake for somebody else. That's next.
Right.
And so he got a piece that had the baby, and I was just like, "Don't worry about it. You ain't gotta buy. You know what I'm saying? You ain't gotta buy 3,000 pieces of cake for everybody to come back." And then after the museum, we had like walked around some
Mhm.
place too.
Mhm.
We had lunch there, and honestly, we left. We left and went to the cookie shop and then came back, got like a little turned around, and then we sat in another place. It's called City Park. And
Mhm.
when we got to the park, it was way too many, it's hot, way too many
Mhm.
mosquitoes and whatnot in
Mhm.
Louisiana. So I do remember him having like a blanket. So he put the blanket out on a bench and we
Come
just
on now, Michael.
mhm.
Come on.
So he put the blanket out on the bench. We sat and talked for a while. And then I remember he had like a book bag, and I was just like, "Why he got this book?" Like being nosy, the wrong thing. So I remember in
Mhm.
the park, like he had this book, and so we sit down inside of the park, and he pulls out. Well, first we had lunch,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and I remember telling him at the table that
Mhm.
I was listening to this podcast. And so I was listening to another podcast, the Dear Future Wifey podcast.
Mhm.
I didn't
Mhm.
tell him about the content of the podcast that I listened to,
Mhm.
but just that I was in tune with one.
Mhm.
And the topic happened to be a lady she was dating somebody well, not dating, but she said she was courting, right? She used
Mhm.
the term courting. She said, "Oh, my husband and I were really traditional, right? Like we
Mhm.
didn't date each other, we courted, and he would do all of these beautiful things and yada yada." And so
Mhm.
in my head, after listening to all of that, I was just like, I want to be courted too. Like I don't want to date, I want to be courted.
Mhm.
And so again, this is just me listening to this podcast. And I remember when we sat down for lunch at this museum,
Mhm.
and we were just talking, like we were just an outside area. And I remember his words. He was just talking about, I don't even remember what the conversation was, but all of a sudden he was just like, "And you deserve to be courted like the princess you are." I was like, huh? Excuse me.
Mhm.
And so when he was
Mm.
that, honestly, like I said, I share with him that I listen to podcasts, right? Like all the time, I always have reading, listening to things. And so, but I never share with him the content of that. And so I
Right.
realized that during that conversation, there were certain things that the Lord really was beginning
Yes.
to reveal to me through
Yeah.
that
That's that
because I
confirmation.
never said those things out loud. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was
Yeah.
just an incident. So he began to share that. That was one incident. And then the next beautiful thing, like I said, it was a whole day date. We went into the park itself. We sat down on the bench. And then I noticed this journal that he has. People are jogging in the park, right? Like people go to the park to work out, to walk, whatever.
Mhm.
So people are running, people are jogging. This
Mhm.
man pulls out this journal and begins to sing to me in the park. He sings me 2 songs in the park, and then after that, he writes, or excuse me, he recites a poem to a spoken word piece that he wrote also for me at the park. People walking by, I don't know if I'm supposed to be taking pictures. What am I doing in this moment right now? And jogging, and he just like, like singing. I'm just like, oh my god. So, but
You
it
know
was
what? If
Mhm.
shoot your shot with a bazooka was a person,
Yes,
it would be Michael.
yeah.
Mhm.
Telling you.
Hmm.
Now, by
Yeah.
the end of that day, when
Wow.
you took him back to the airport so he could go home.
Hmm.
On your drive home, what were you thinking? Chalk,
Oh, my
first.
drive back. Well, I didn't take him
Yes.
back to the airport. Remember, because he
Oh,
had the car.
I have my car.
oh, he
So
had a car. Okay,
he
so
had a car.
when he left to go back to the airport, Chalk, what were you thinking?
I think my mind was like, woo, like it was all over the place because all we spent the entire day together, right?
Yeah,
All of
yeah.
these events happened during the day, the conversation, the breakfast, the singing, the word, and
Mhm,
even the spoken word that he read at the end of that day. It
mhm.
was like, and even the Polaroid pictures. Like I'm taking pictures of the Polaroids because you're gonna take them back home. At least so I thought. But even
Right.
after we left the park that day, he drops him back off at home, probably like around 4 or so. And then he was just like, okay, I'll give you about an hour and a half and then I'll be back to pick you up for dinner. And so
Mhm,
when he picks me up that evening, we're driving because I remember asking him before, even before he came for that day, I was just like, well, what kind of food do you like? Because I didn't been, you know what I'm saying? I didn't lived in the city for
mhm,
17 years now. So I'm
mhm.
just like, I don't feel like going anywhere. Ask me, you know what I'm saying? Like, wherever you're at, I will tell you this is a place. But he didn't tell me anything. And so when he picked me up that evening and we drove out, I
Mhm,
realized that we were driving to, it's the side of the town that's called the West Bank. And so we
mhm,
were driving and I was just like, it's only 2 places that I know that were over there. And one of the places is a Dominican restaurant. And
mhm,
so when we
mm.
end up pulling into the parking lot, I looked at him while we were driving still. And I remember like patting him on the leg and be like, you did a really good job. Like this is really awesome.
Wow.
It was just so intentional and so thoughtful. And I
Yeah,
remember
that's what
still
I was
being
thinking
that
just now, like the level of thoughtfulness
it is.
and
Yeah.
intention that went into this one day
The one.
official date
Yeah,
is epic.
it is.
I,
Yeah.
so Michael, when you were driving to the airport, what were you thinking?
I think just I was like satisfied in the sense of like
Mhm,
really making my intentions clear, and
mhm,
then also like the kind of shoot your shot thing,
mhm,
like in the sense of if it wasn't clear before,
mhm.
it should be really clear now,
You would
and
think.
then and you would think, and then really just leaving it kind of in the hands of the Lord, like
Yeah.
I mean like that's I mean making it really clear like what my
Mhm.
intentions were, and then I think just again like leaving it yeah leaving it in the hands of the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So by this time, Chocolate, had you I know you said your mom met Michael, but had you talked to Joe? Had you talked to your dad about Michael?
Nah, heck no.
No?
Not after date number one. I didn't share that at all. I don't think I should. Well, and that's my family, so that's my
Yeah.
unit. So we talk about before anybody else hears about anything they know. First
Right,
that's
right.
how it goes. But I think maybe date two.
Yeah, take
I
by day
think by date
two.
number two, yeah. By date number two, I think I had shared with my dad and with Joe what was happening,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I don't know if you guys started talking on the phone yet, though. I
Yeah,
think
then
after the
after day
second,
two.
yeah. So after date number two is when
Mhm,
they began to cultivate more relationship of,
mhm,
and I remember that was also something that was very serious with Michael because the oldest, we two older children, right? So the
mhm,
oldest
mhm,
a male and the youngest
mhm,
is a female. And so
mhm,
I remember Michael clearly telling me if my daughter, began dating, I
mhm.
would want I would want to have a relationship with her fiance, right?
Right,
Before
right.
things began to get serious. Like I'd
Mhm,
need to cultivate that. And so that really was something that was important to me. To me, it was like another unspoken request that
mhm,
I never shared with him. Another
mhm,
request that I asked the Lord was
mhm,
I wanted just to fit, like I want the person who I'm supposed to be with it just fits with my family. Like my mom will
Mhm.
call him son, my dad will call him son, my brother will call
Mhm.
him brother. Like everything will
Mhm.
just flow. My family members will all, it will all work. And
Right.
the Lord gave that to me.
Right.
I remember being able to sit on the couch and just, I would pass my mom the phone because my mom was living with me for a while. And so
Mhm.
I passed mom the phone and they would be talking for a while, or I would I think I'd call my dad, or he would call me and he was just like, yeah, I talked to Michael. I was like, huh? Like I don't even know about the conversation. And both of them would be like, they was just like, I ain't gotta tell you when I talk. I was like, wait, I'm the one who's in the middle, so like y'all not gonna have this. But again, those were things that I had
Yeah.
asked, and they didn't have to tell me about it, but I asked the Lord for those things. So little
Yeah.
by little, I would notice, that things were already beginning to pick up. And even by
Right.
the second date, I flew to Colorado 2 months
Mhm.
later. So first date
Right.
was in February, second date was in April, and
Mhm.
I came. And then this time, before he dropped me off at the hotel where I stayed, we
Mhm.
sat in the car for like, I want to say, a couple of hours.
Mhm.
We sat in
Mhm.
the car for a few hours and
Mhm.
literally just talked. It was just like, this has got to be something that is serious because we are flying, right? We're
Yeah.
flying miles to see each other. So this is
Yeah.
not some just happenstance. But I remember his conversation even at that point was just like, we don't have to know the answers right now. We don't have to
Mhm.
know how or what it means. We
Mhm.
just we just sit, like we're just here. We do
Mhm.
what it is that we're supposed to do. We're just listen to what the Lord says, and that's really what it was. Yeah.
I
So
love
that's what
how
it
you
is.
I love how you took your time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what else I love, Chuck? I love that you didn't sit and spill your guts to him about what kind of man you wanted.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
God knew what you wanted.
That's it.
And
Yeah.
Michael was so in tune with the Lord that he was able to confirm
Mm-hmm.
for you what you had only told God, you
Yeah.
hadn't told him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I think
Yeah.
sometimes we as women, because we with
Mm-hmm.
our emotional selves,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we have a tendency to want to overshare
Overshare.
with
Yeah.
the person that we're getting to know what we're
Right.
looking for in a
Right.
man.
Right. Instead of
And
just being observant,
yes,
right? And
instead
just
of
being
just being
quiet.
observant
Mhm,
and allowing God to speak to your heart and to your
mhm,
spirit, and allowing this man to be himself
mhm.
in a way that, it'll be clear to you
Yeah,
if this is the man for you.
yeah,
So I like that you did that. I like that you didn't tell him, this is what I want, this is what I like. I want you to do this, this, and that, and blah, blah, blah. You wasn't doing none of that.
that's it.
You just
That's it.
allowed him to be himself. You were being yourself. And
Mhm.
that's how the two of you were able to build such a beautiful friendship
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
before anything else.
Yeah.
So the first date he came to you,
Yep.
second date you went to him.
Mhm.
When did the proposal happen?
Yeah. That's summertime.
Yeah, and I think the other funny thing too is
Mhm.
that even after April,
Mhm.
um, we enrolled in a marriage class.
Mhm.
So, so, so,
Okay.
so, so we enrolled in like a marriage 101
Yeah.
class that they
Right.
do
Mhm.
at my church because it was virtual,
Mhm.
and so she kind of would come from
Yeah.
Louisiana and
Mhm.
like, but and so again, I think that shows that it's the courtship idea
Mhm.
Yeah.
because going into it, we already like knew again like we want to know more about marriage and we
Right.
want to be like start preparing ourselves.
Right.
Mhm.
And so that was even before the proposal piece.
Yeah. The
Mhm.
marriage class was before proposal, right?
Mhm.
So if you're
Mhm.
obviously in a marriage class, that means you know that a proposal should be coming.
Should
Should
you
be
would, you
forthcoming.
you would think.
It should be forthcoming.
Should be. Yeah. Not for me though. I'm a
Okay,
different
so
one.
what happened?
Say July.
So July, we decided this conference season. It's summertime,
No, no conferences.
right? So
Oh
I
Lord, you in these
did.
conferences.
She did conferences.
Right. So I did conferences because again, it was a busy summer. So I was doing stuff with NEA. I was
Mhm.
doing stuff with ISTE. Like my summer was still jam packed. But
Right.
we intentionally made a plan to meet up in Denver. Right. We
No,
met.
we met up in California. We ended up meeting it.
That's right.
Mm.
So she was flying from one of her
From Florida. I
conferences.
was. Yeah.
So she
Mhm.
flew from Florida to California, where her
Mhm.
dad lives.
Right.
Right.
And then I flew to California
Mhm.
as
Yeah.
well. And I think it was dad's
Vow
renewal.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went there for that. And then the plan was that we would drive from California to Washington State.
Right.
So
Okay.
So that's what it is. So we did a road trip. And of course, I'm used to the road trip, right? Going between LA and Washington State the entire time. But this is new for him, right? So, and it was new obviously for both of us to be on the road together now, doing something different. Because really, it was just to go to the vow renewal. That was the game plan. So we ended up getting in the car, we drive, and we make it to that day. The day of the vow renewal was something that I didn't know about. We were running errands together. We went to go help them pick up the cake that they had already ordered. And so we ended up meeting at the church. And then both of us had like a mini piece of the program. Like we got a chance to share with him. He read the scripture. I gave a piece of the program. And then somewhere down the line, he had a conversation with my dad, which I had no inclination about.
Yeah. So what's happening was, I knew in the back of my mind that part of the reason why I wanted to go to meet her dad was to be able to ask for her hand formally to him in person.
Okay.
And so kind of being prayerful about like, when is it going to, like, this is his like vow renewal. So like, when's going to be a good time to have that conversation with him? And then the other piece that was happening behind the scenes is I was trying to think through, like, at what point can I start like getting to know like what kind of ring that she's interested in? So do I like talk to one of her girlfriends or that kind of thing? And she looks with her and then kind of just, so all this stuff is going on behind the scenes. And I even called, I even looked at like what Jared's, like what Jared jewelry stores were near.
He was Jared, like, girl.
And
so it just so happened, like before the vow renewal, that people showed up late. So sometimes people of color show up late for things. It kind of worked out.
Okay.
But and then her father asked me just like when I come to like read the scripture. So I was sitting like in the front row with him while we're waiting for people to show up, and someone from the church had come and he introduced me as his son-in-law. And so he said, "Hey, this is my son-in-law, Michael or whatever." And then after the person kind of passed by, I said, "Actually, I wanted to."
Now that you say that, that's the perfect segue.
Right.
And so I asked formally for her hand like while we were sitting there waiting, because it was just the two of us.
Oh,
and he was just like smiling ear to ear.
No, he was.
Gave his yes, and then almost ruined it after after they walked out, like after the vow renewal. He looked at her because there was a little reception on the outside. He looked at her and said, I know something you don't know."
Right.
And I sound like they do.
I'm so happy, and I'm clearly, I'm clueless still. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, you should be happy. Renewal, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is your time to celebrate. But I didn't know that conversation had just happened,
Right.
So,
and then the next day we went to go meet, I think it was an old friend or someone from Washington State who had moved to California for lunch.
And we were supposed to go, so the city that we were in, after the vow renewal, we were supposed to go back to LA. Like I was supposed to drive to LA, which is like an hour and a half away. And then I was supposed to see my cousins there, and then we were just going to go. But for whatever reason, that didn't plan out. Something else had happened. And so we ended up going an hour and a half the opposite direction to Palmdale. And this is where our old church family was now living. And so when we went there, that's when the whole proposal happened. So we ended up going to have lunch there. And then I said, well, while we were driving, we were leaving the place to go have lunch. And then we were driving. I was just like, can we stop at Cousin Jared? Now I'm just playing. And I literally am just playing, but clearly because I'm playing, you would think that even still, my mind is get on it. We in a marriage class. You know what I'm saying?
He met your dad. I mean, come on, he met your dad. That's major. Like, if your dad liked him, that's all the brownie points he need.
Exactly.
Because we know how your daddy is about you.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so what happened?
So she said, let's go see Cousin Jared. So we walked in, and it was just us. It was number one, it was just us. We were the only couple in the store. And then it kind of just was seamless and pretty quick. Kind of like we walked around and we just like saw the rings.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, I really like this. Like she knew which
Yeah.
one that she really liked and like really liked.
Yeah.
And then like finding the wedding bands that go with that kind of. So we just kind of made a circle around and found those things.
And I hadn't looked at stuff before. I mean, like I tried on one, I think, and I was just like, nah, like that's too gaudy. And then the lady came out with something else. I was just like, that's pretty. And then when she came out with that, like I ain't take the ring off. Like we went to try this one on, but then walked around the rest of the store with the same ring on, and he trying on other stuff too. So.
And then we kind of made our way around, and of course, you know, it's Jared, so they're gonna try to sell you something. They want to make that sale. And so like they start asking questions, and I think for me internally, like things are kind of swirling. Like, okay, this is the opportunity. Like, but I'm not ready. Like I didn't plan for this. Like, what's going on? And like basically just saying like, oh, like we have like a payment plan, or like you can do this, or like we can check your credit, and you can be that. And so as we're walking around, I think within maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, they'd already checked my credit. They're like, man, you have really good credit. And so like you qualify for that.
And I'm texting, like I'm texting my best bud right now, right? I call her my B double F. And so I'm texting her, she's like, hey Tay, what you doing now? She's like, oh, nothing. I need the ring sign. And so I remember her sending, she sends like this emoji or this gift bag of somebody like shouting and taking the store. And so
I love that.
Or when they approve this credit or something, like I looked up at my text message, I was just like, I want to push through credit, you know, because they said, I think whatever. So I'm sitting texting her, but I'm still not paying attention to like what is happening in front of me, you know. I remember the lady being behind the counter, and then I remember him just like, we were just sitting there, but in my head I kept thinking, why are we still sitting here? Like we've already shared with the people, and they were the owners of the store, so they just happened to be the owners too. And so we were sitting there, and I was just like, why are we still here? We told the lady like, I'm only passing through, like I'm originally from here, but I'm not staying here. We're leaving tomorrow, you know. And we were leaving tomorrow to go see my brother. And so when we were there, I was just like, I've already given them like 3 reasons that it's time for us to go, you know?
Right.
But I remember them asking about the credit and then going through that process. And then they asked him something about getting on the email list to be able to pick the ring up elsewhere, like be able to pick it up at another location or something like that. And then all of a sudden she, you know how like you laid the thing out like on the counter, right? Like they have the paper for the ring and they have the bow and everything. And so I'm just like, in my head, it's still not clicking in my head.
I'm so tired of you. I'm tired of your senior moments. You're not old enough to be having all these senior moments, Nelann.
She lays all this stuff out. And
girl, you done gave me a headache.
Awesome. She's going to put the ring in the box, and then he's going to have the box because he's in the email list or whatever. But then all of a sudden, it was just like slow motion. Like for me, it turned into slow motion because she comes from behind the counter, or like turned from facing the cash register to facing us. And then she's walking over with the ring. But in my head again, she's putting the ring in the box. She's packaging everything. But all of a sudden, she doesn't put the ring in the box. Michael stands up because we're sitting next to each other at these 2 chairs. He stands up, intercepts the ring, and now I'm just like, he's like down on the knee. And then the guy, the other owner, because it's 2 of them, it's the lady who's behind the counter, and then the guy is also there. So there's a guy who's there who's the other owner. He's quickly telling me, like, hurry up, give me your phone. And I'm like, here, so he can record everything, right? So I pass him my phone, and that's it. Michael is all of a sudden on a knee, and then the owner of the store is recording the video.
Michael! Oh, what?
Yeah.
So he proposed right there in the store.
Jared's in that store. Yeah.
And you was awake enough to say yes, I presume.
The first words were, "Are we ready?"
Yeah.
Are we ready?
Are we ready? And remind you, that's my unit. My mom, my dad, my brother.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
In my head, I didn't know that he had the conversation with my dad. I didn't know that, right? I did not know. And then the next thing that came out of my mouth was, if I never would have said, let's go stop at Cousin Jared, we weren't even going to come here, in my head, right?
Right.
But I didn't know he had already called like 3 Jareds. He called the Jareds in New Orleans. He called the Jareds in LA. He called the Jareds in Washington State. I didn't even know that. And so
what more did you need to know to know that he is a man
Yeah.
with a plan.
With
Come
a plan.
on.
With a plan.
Yeah,
Oh,
but I think one of the biggest pieces was the next piece.
Yeah.
Like once we got the ring, she said yes. We ended up in the
yes.
car,
Right.
and then she was like, "Well, I don't want to wear the ring yet. Like
Hmm.
I don't want to wear." And I think
Because I didn't know, right?
because she didn't know about Dad,
Yeah.
Right.
and then I had the conversation with her, and but I think again, like one of the things that let me know in this process that I was ready
Hmm. Hmm.
is how do I handle rejection? And
Mm.
especially with that, putting myself out there to that degree,
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
literally, we were just in Jared's, and you said yes. And what do you mean you don't want to wear the ring? Like how that work? But again, and I think it came to the point that you know what? Okay, like if you're not ready, then
Yeah.
we'll wait, we'll hold off. Like I'll hold the ring, and then we'll wait until you're
Right.
ready. Like for because it's a ring, like you know what I'm saying. Like the commitment is
Hmm.
already there.
Hmm.
Obviously, we're a marriage class together.
Right.
But I think it's almost like those moments in your life when you can see
Hmm.
like God allows you to see the maturity that He's allowed you to come to
Yeah.
through the
Hmm.
things that you've gone through. That it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, I think I am ready for a relationship
Yeah.
because 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have handled rejection like this,
Mhm.
and it would have been
Hmm.
all about me.
Hmm.
And so I think that, and we just had like a really good conversation.
Yeah. And
And
Hmm.
that's a pivotal moment, just because
Yeah.
of the transparency for both of us and the severity of it. I just accepted a ring. I just told
Right.
the man yes, and I meant it. I was happy about it. But I felt like
Hmm.
for whatever reason, I'm grown, I'm older, I'm an adult already, I'm a seasoned adult. But for
Hmm.
whatever reason, I still felt like I didn't have permission, or I didn't
Hmm.
have, like I didn't have permission from, what is my mom going to say when I go back home? What is my
Right.
dad going to say? What is my brother going to say? Like I felt like I needed that piece of permission,
Yeah.
and I didn't. But being able to have a candid and a calm conversation,
mhm,
I felt like was like a make or break at that, because you put yourself out there. This
Right.
man just got on a knee for me, and so
Right.
it wasn't anything that I was just, it wasn't like a fluff conversation. It wasn't something that I
Right.
just was trivial. It was real. And I think for us to be able to have that serious moment in the car, and for
Yeah.
me to be respectful and mindful of the way that I spoke to him, and for
Hmm.
him also to be very mindful of his response, and not just canceling everything, be like, forget it,
Hmm.
He was
Hmm.
very, and I think about, I enjoy that the most. Well, not the most, but that's one of the things that I love about his character, just because he is older. We're only 2 years apart, but again, I've always migrated to older people. So he's older,
Yeah.
but I appreciate the fact that he is just very calm and very mindful of me, no matter
Hmm.
what that situation is. And he's also just mature
Yeah.
in being able to handle a situation, and also kind of sometimes coach me through different ways to express myself, because I'm not the feeling type, or the
Right.
one to be like, let's talk about this.
Oh, you
Like, no,
will be. You keep hanging
right,
out with him.
exactly.
Hmm.
And
This
so,
is the thing I don't get, though. This is what I
mhm,
don't understand about you, Nelann.
mhm.
How could you possibly think
Yeah,
that Michael would have even proposed before talking to your father?
I know.
Why would you
I don't
think
know.
that?
Yeah, yeah,
You should have
yeah.
known.
I should have
The
known.
man with the plan
The man with the
talked to
plan.
your daddy before
Seriously.
he got on one knee.
Of course.
I
Yeah.
need you to just,
I
I need
know.
the light is on.
I know.
Get nobody
Yeah.
home.
Of course. Yeah.
but God worked it out.
He
God worked it
did.
out. We
Yeah.
Yes, he
had that
did. So
He
you,
did.
so you said yes.
And I said yes.
Drive to California to see Joe.
Yeah.
Did you
And then,
tell Joe right away?
No,
well,
so even before we left California, before we
yeah,
left
Hmm.
that same
that
that
same
same night, but then the following morning.
yeah the
So we
following
Hmm.
ended
morning.
up going back to my dad's house, and then stayed with
Right,
him. And
right.
then Michael is a runner dancer, so he went out running that morning.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so to me, it's like, this is my perfect opportunity. Now I can go talk to my daddy. You know what I'm saying? So he goes out running, and I remember going into the couch, and I go lay down on the couch, and my dad is sitting right there, and I'm just like, um, And again, I don't know any of the conversation that they had,
So
right?
you all nervous. You nervous.
Yeah, I am, because
Okay.
I'm going to go talk to them. And again, remember, I don't have this ring on, right? They
Right.
had a
Right.
conversation. Ring off. Michael put the ring back in his suitcase. So now I go talk to my dad on the couch. Michael is out and about. And so now I
Hmm.
said, well, my dad tells me, he was just like, don't you have something to tell me or show me? And I was like, huh? Like, what you talking about? You know, like, I didn't tell you to ask me that. I'm like, what you talking about? And so then he says, yeah. He said, you have something to tell me or show me, huh? And I was just like, I said, kind of. And then I say, well, I do have, I said, yeah, I do have something to tell you. And he was just like, whatever it is, we went through the whole conversation about I have the ring, and he did. I was like, he did. He proposed, and my dad was just like, well, where the ring at? And I said, it's in his bag. And then he was just like, go get that ring and put that, go put your ring on. He was like, why you don't have it on? And I said, I don't know. I said, I didn't, because I didn't talk to you guys, and I didn't, like, we didn't have this chat. And he was just like, is this what you asked God for? I said, yes. And then he
Wow.
was just like, well, he
Oh.
said, he said, don't let the devil trick you out of what you already know is yours. Don't let him take away what
Yeah.
you already asked God for. And I was just like, okay. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
anything else. It wasn't deep. But I think it was just the fact of having that with my father, because
Yeah.
that's, you know,
I get
that's
it.
that's
I
my
get it. I
daddy.
probably would have
Yeah.
done the same thing. And I know your daddy was eating that up, knowing something that you didn't know. I know
And
he
then
was.
he was just like, don't you have something to show? I was like, what you talking about? And how you know? And so he was
Right.
like, go get that ring. I said, I ain't going to that man bag to get that ring. And so by the time Michael came back to the house from his jog, and we all ended up sitting around the table together, this is another part that I love about his character and just how he considers me. So
Yeah.
we got back to the table, and of course my dad and I have had this conversation already, but all of us are now around the table, right? And so what did I forget how he set it up?
Yeah.
I remember Yvonne was saying like, oh, I remember she was recording,
Mhm.
but somehow, oh, my dad, yeah, because he makes jokes about all kinds of stuff. So he made
Mhm.
some kind of joke and was just
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
all right, well, go get the goods, or what I'm saying. Let me see what it is. And so when he said that, Michael and I still hadn't talked again after the conversation, right? And so
Mhm.
at that time, when my dad was just like, go get it, Michael looks at me and he was just like, are you okay? Is this what you want? Right?
Yeah.
Because again, in the
Yeah.
car, he and I talked in the car. And so for that moment, for him to consider me in that moment and not just
Yeah.
be concerned about, what my dad says, or, what his
Mhm.
wife was saying, it was really, it's about me. Are you okay? And so when I said yes, he goes to get the ring, and it's like
Mhm.
another proposal all over again.
Right.
And he
Oh.
does it in front of them, and then I finally get the ring, and now I
Oh.
have a hard time taking this bad boy off. Don't ask me, you can see my ring from a distance. I ain't gonna be taking it off. Yeah, yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
you said yes. Daddy's
Mm-hmm.
happy. You're happy.
Mm-hmm.
Brother's happy. Mama's happy. You
The
start
brother,
wedding
the
planning.
brother is a whole other level too now. And then you know how your cell phone is talking, right? Because on
Yes.
this road trip, when we leave from California and head to Washington now,
Mhm.
I called my brother on the phone from the hotel room, right? Because we have different
Mhm.
hotels that we're staying in, different hotels stay in
Right.
different rooms. And so now I called my brother on the phone. I'm just like, yeah, we getting ready to get on the road, and then Michael's gonna be here in a little bit to pick me up. And then I didn't. We're video chat, right? Video chat on the phone. And
Mhm.
so my brother saying, he said something like, "We can't wait till you get here," or whatever. And I was just like, "Okay," like on the phone with him. But the phone freezes. I wish I was thinking the phone freezes, and I'm like, "Okay." But I remember my brother's face was like, and when he listened, that he was just like, "Oh, okay, y'all coming through, huh?" I was just like, "Yeah." So that was that. That
Wow.
it was really just exciting.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we fast forward to April 20th.
Mm-hmm.
2024.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I was able to be there. That
I'm so
was one of
too.
the most exquisite. You two
Oh,
are some creative people.
amen.
Y'all
Amen.
put together a whole short film
Yeah.
of your journey together.
Yeah. Yeah.
From the friendship
Mhm.
phase to the courting phase to the
Yeah.
proposal phase to it was so beautiful how you did that. And then out there in the reception area, it was playing on these huge screens.
Mhm.
Y'all, when I tell you that wedding was exquisite, it
Oh.
was
Mm.
so beautiful. And it took
Mhm.
you put so much thought into it. And
Mhm.
even before the wedding started, you could feel the love in the room. The people that were in that room love you.
Amen.
You
Yeah.
could feel it. I could
Mhm.
feel it. And I
Mhm.
just remember, Nelann, you just being in middle school. And you're right, you were always around the old people. It wasn't me, it was your godmom.
Mhm.
Just I
Mhm.
remember that, and I was thinking
Yeah.
about you as a little girl, and here
Mhm.
you are, a grown woman, and you're marrying your Michael because, baby, let me tell you, Nelann don't introduce him as Michael, honey. That
Mm-mm.
is
That's
my Michael. She
Mm.
gonna
and
let
I
you
got that
know.
from you.
And the other, right? And the other
Mhm.
day, I learned about Boo Dip,
My little boo dip. Mhm.
her Boo Dip. So this is just such a beautiful Black love story. I I'm so thankful to have been there to experience this with
Thank
your
you.
friends and your family and all the people that love you. I left
Mhm.
inspired. I
Oh.
left feeling so proud of you, Chalk, and just so happy to meet you, Michael. I was so happy to finally meet you.
Yeah, me too as
And
well.
I think that you are such a beautiful couple. I
Thank
really
you.
do. And that's why I wanted you to come on the show tonight to share
Thank
your
you.
story because I know there are a lot of people who, like you, are probably going to get married later in life. And so
Yeah.
right now they're living their life as single people
Mhm.
and hopefully they're making the best of life and
Mhm.
not praying and begging and pleading with God to put an APB out on their Boaz, but actually
Yeah.
living life. And I'm talking about women. It's really important that we remember the
Mhm.
man that comes into our life should not come in and have to create a sense of happiness and well-being in us.
Right.
We should
Mhm.
already be there. And
Yeah.
he should add to that sense of well-being, that
That's
sense
right.
of happiness, that peace.
Mhm.
He should be adding to that. He should
Yeah.
be the origin of that. And I
Mhm.
think you're a great example of a woman who had come into her peace,
Mhm.
come into her well-being, had
Mhm.
a great career, has a great career, was
Mhm.
enjoying your life, enjoying your family, enjoying your friends, traveling, doing all the things that you wanted to do when Michael came in. And so now you have someone to share your full life with.
Yeah.
And the two of you had full lives when you met.
Mhm.
So now that you've come together and you've coupled together, you can have an even fuller life. It's
Yeah.
not like you were depleted and he was depleted and now you're together and you got a little something.
Right.
You both had full lives.
Mhm.
Both doing what you needed to do to take advantage of life and really love who you were with, your family, Michael, your children, your careers, your friends, all of that. I think that's a great way to enter into a partnership when you're adding to what you already have in the bucket. You think
Mhm.
so?
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, I think so. Well, thank you so much for being here. Somebody in there talking about your boo dip. Who is that? Oh, Lane.
That's my
She
cousin.
said boo dip for sure. Yes, honey. Keep it now. You got to be for real. Boo dip for sure.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm gonna forever call him Michael, the man with the plan. That's gonna be my name for him. I want to
Yeah.
go back and look at some of these comments. You have so much love in the
Yeah.
chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my
Mhm.
cousin.
Yeah. And then I got
And
my
then,
church family in there too. So people too.
wow, Jaquette
Uh-huh.
Harper.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
wow. I absolutely love it. Melanie Brown isn't, yes. She
Mhm.
probably remembers you as a kid too.
Oh,
Auntie Vern is in the chat.
that's awesome. Yeah.
Maranatha.
That's right. Oh,
Yes,
that's
I love it.
beautiful.
I absolutely love it. Listen, I want to give you the floor for your parting words. What do you want to say
Mm.
to singles that are watching right now? They
Mhm.
haven't met their boo dip.
Well,
And, what do you want to say to encourage their heart?
yeah. You want to start? Or
Yes, sir.
me?
Mhm.
I would say leave it to God, really.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think it's easier to understand now. And even in the process when it was happening, I
Mhm.
remember people would always say, when you least expect it, it'll
Mhm.
come.
Mhm.
And I didn't understand that. And honestly, I would be upset, be like, what you mean when I least expect? Clearly, I'm expecting. I'm supposed to be interested. I'm supposed to wait for these things to happen. But when my mind was off of that, when
Yeah.
being a wife was not my heart's sole desire,
Right.
and it really
Right.
does. And I think that's just the sweet spot is where the Lord wants us really, because if
Yeah.
anything else is in front of where He is supposed to be, that's a
Mhm.
problem. Whether it's
Yeah.
husband or wife, whether it's career, whether it's children,
Mhm.
nothing is supposed to come
Mhm.
before the Lord.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I think when I got to that understanding and
Mhm.
that peace of mind too, that gave me freedom to literally need to be like knocked over the head to be like, this is who I have for you now. Like now you're ready to do it. So for anybody who is
Literally knocked in the head.
literally, okay? But it was a waiting process and some pieces were uncomfortable, but until I
Yeah.
got settled in really knowing who I was in the Lord, that's
Yeah.
really it. That's all it is. If you don't know Jesus, now is the time. Get to know him,
Mhm.
right? Don't worry about
Yeah.
trying to find your mate or find this job or find
Just
this
find the Lord.
career. That's it.
Mhm.
Find
Yeah.
him,
I'm
and
glad
cry
you
out
said
to
that.
him. That's what he's waiting for. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm glad you said that. Some parts of it were uncomfortable. It wasn't always,
Yeah.
lollipops and roses. You
Right,
at
because you
some
look
point
around
you
people
want
that
it
you
to
can marry.
be.
Exactly. I'm
Yeah.
looking at everybody else. I'm just like, come on, Jesus, what you trying to do? Make it make sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
What do you want to say, Michael? What do you want to say?
And I think just the idea that that healthy people attract healthy people.
Mm,
Mhm.
So
Oh, that's
really,
good. Mhm.
it just when it became about like for me getting healthy myself,
Mhm. Mhm.
but knowing that if I could do that, then I could be healthy for my kids. So I mean,
Yeah.
through like a
Yeah.
traumatic experience like a divorce, when I focused on that and how I
Mhm.
was going to get healed myself
Mhm.
and that part with the Lord,
Mhm.
then you look up and you see healthy people around you, and you can recognize opportunities to be able to build relationship.
Mhm.
And so I think that again, for those who have gone through like divorce or gone through like loss or that kind of thing in relationships,
Mhm.
that the focus isn't on finding a mate. The focus is on getting
Mhm.
healed and getting healthy and learning from other relationships,
mm,
so that you can move forward. And
Mhm.
so once you do that, once I'd invested in that process, like that's
Mhm.
when like God brought me all the things that
Mhm.
I never knew that I wanted, but brought me what I needed in
Yeah.
relationship. Mhm.
Yeah. I have a friend, Debrina Jackson Gandy. She is a relationship expert. She's written several
mm,
books.
okay.
And she says that when a woman takes the time to build a life she loves, when she meets the man that God has for her, she gets to invite him to a celebration, not a
Mm,
pity party. He
mm.
gets to come to the celebration. And
All
she's
right.
already celebrating life when she meets
Mm-hmm,
him. And I
mm-hmm,
think when I think about what she said to me, I think about the two of you. You are
mm.
already celebrating life, and you got to invite Michael into your party, and he got to invite you into his party.
Yeah.
I
Mm,
love it. I
mm.
love it. Well,
Thank
Mhm.
thank you so much for stopping by Fridays by the Fire. I appreciate it.
you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
good invitation.
Hmm.
Hopefully, I can bring
Awesome.
you
Thank you.
back when you're celebrating 5 years of marriage, so we can see how
Yes.
things are going.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I
Yes.
love y'all.
Love you
Love
too.
you too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Y'all have a good night.
Good
All
night.
right.
All right. Good night. All right, everybody. That's our show. Again, thank you so much for joining me for episode 2 of Fridays by the Fire. Be on the lookout for a brand new episode next Friday. It's going to be exciting. I can't wait for you to see it. Again, remember, typically, Fridays by the Fire is a 20-minute meaningful conversation with some of my favorite sister girls. So don't miss next Friday by the Fire. Thank you so much for being with me tonight. Good night and God bless.